A couple drive along the road, arguing. Suddenly, they stumble upon a flock of lambs. They're surprised when they notice a man among the flock. The man introduces himself as Harsha, and they inquire about his presence among the flock. Harsha begins to narrate his story, revealing that he currently works in New York, with the intention of getting married soon. He purchases a house in preparation for his marriage, with his friends and colleagues assisting him in every way possible. Meanwhile, back at home, his family is busy preparing for his marriage ceremony. Later, Harsha flies to India for his wedding, where his parents shortlist 20 potential brides, and he has to choose one among them. Upon arriving at the airport, the luggage inspector Subbub asks for the owner of a particular box, which turns out to be Harsha's. When he opens the box, unexpected materials fall out, surprising both Harsha and the officer. Harsha feels embarrassed and confronts his brother, who sent the box, with a slap after being cleared by the officer. When they return home, his family warmly welcomes him, and his uncle introduces him to a priest who will conduct the matchmaking ceremony the next day. The priest informs Harsha that his wedding will be the first of his career, emphasizing the importance of his support for its success, as he will soar if the wedding goes well. He asks Harsha to pat his shoulder, but when he turns around, he realizes that Harsha has disappeared. The next day, Harsha and his family arrive at a potential bride's house, but the priest realizes they're at the wrong house, but it's too late to go back, as he already revealed their intentions. Harsha and his family enter to meet the bride, and Harsha requests to speak with her alone. They sit down over cups of tea, attempting to get to know each other. In an effort to assess their compatibility, they engage in a question and answer session. After exchanging answers, Harsha feels he's found the right bride, but his family reminds him that they have 20 more brides to visit, advising him not to rush. On their way out, the priest hands Harsha a horoscope and instructs him to drop it off at the country club, as it doesn't match his own. Surprisingly, at the country club, he meets the officer Subbub, who searched his box at the airport. Harsha begins to explain that the contents of the box belong to his brother and not him. He further reveals that he came to return his daughter's horoscope, as it doesn't match his own. Unfortunately, Harsha can't find the photo attached to the horoscope, so the officer holds his friend Sudhir captive, demanding that Harsha finds the picture. Harsha eventually locates the picture and informs Sudhir, who begins to speak rudely to the officer. Sudhir soon realizes Harsha lost the photo again and begins to plead with the officer. Later, Harsha and his friend go to a volleyball court when the officer calls again, requesting the picture. Harsha's friend snatches the phone and scolds Subbub, who points out that Sudhir, who spoke rudely, is now begging for forgiveness. Ignoring their pleas, Subbub decides to take Sudhir to the police station to teach them a lesson. In the evening, Harsha worries about how to retrieve the lost photo. Fortunately, they come up with an idea. They attend a concert, where they meet Vibha, a stand-up comedian who happens to be Subbub's daughter. During her performance, she cracks jokes about marriage and single life. After the show, Harsha approaches her on stage, explaining his situation. Vibha offers to give him her picture if he can answer her question. Unfortunately, he fails to answer, and Vibha leaves him with the advice to think a little while, darling. In the next scene, Harsha meets another potential bride at a restaurant for a chat, but he appears to be carried away during their conversation. When he snaps back to reality, he asks the lady about her expectations for married life. However, her answer doesn't align with his expectations, so he leaves her with the same statement he received from Vibha. When he meets his friend, he tells them that the lady isn't a suitable match for him, and begins to worry that Subbub won't release Sudhir until they find the photo. His friend suggests meeting Vibha's mother to get a photo of Vibha, and they leave for Subbub's house. They arrive at Subbub's house and meet his wife, who welcomes them warmly. She brings out their photo album, sharing stories about each photo. Suddenly, Vibha calls out to her, informing her mother of a fall. She rushes out to tend to her and asks Harsha to help her with a bowl of hot water. As he comes out with the hot water, Vibha sees him and requests to know what he's doing at her house, and he tells her his motive. As her mother tends to her ankle, Vibha makes a statement about ownership of one's body, which catches Harsha's attention. He stares at her in an unusual manner. She notices and questions his inappropriate stare. Vibha takes him inside the house and hands him the photo, and he leaves, but before closing the door, he asks Vibha about her expectations from a partner. She gives him a weird answer, but he accepts it as the right answer to the question. In his next meeting with a potential bride, Harsha shares his expectations from a partner. However, the lady misunderstands his comment about body ownership, leading to a heated argument and Harsha's dismissal from her home. Once again, He concludes that she isn't the right match. The following day, Harsha meets Vibha, who asks about his bride hunt. She doesn't spend time talking with him, so she rushes into the bus with Harsha following her. While on the bus, he soliloquies about seeking qualities of Vibha in every bride he meets. But he is unable to express his feelings at home, neither can he express his feelings to her. As they converse, they discuss their preferences, realizing their differing tastes. Despite this, Harsha finds himself drawn to Vibha. Their interactions become more frequent, leading to an awkward experience when Vibha greets him warmly in front of another potential bride, causing the lady to get angry. Later, Harsha's friends find him staring at Vibha and confront him about his feelings. They question whether he wants Vibha or if he intends to proceed with meeting the remaining 20 brides. Harsha surprises them by confessing his desire for Vibha and his decision to stop the matchmaking process. Sudhir suggests breaking the news to his family, but Harsha hesitates, fearing their reaction. Sudhir emphasizes on the consequences of delaying, prompting Harsha to agree to inform his mother first. Upon entering the house, Harsha's uncle inquires about the number of guests they're expecting from the USA. But Harsha dismisses his question, calling them stingy burgers, only to see his friends from the USA inside. Shocked, he apologizes for his earlier remarks and joins them upstairs. They explain they came to attend all the ceremonies, only to hear Harsha talk down on them. They eventually reconcile and share a lighthearted moment. In the next scene, they visit another potential bride's house. Harsha asks the lady if she has a dirty mind, surprising her. He asks the question about preferring sunrise or sunset, to which she answers sunrise. Harsha concludes they aren't compatible. However, the bride's mother tries to convince him otherwise. Suddenly, Sudhir informs Harsha of an issue with the bride's father, who is enraged by Harsha's statement. As they argue, the priest intervenes, but receives a slap. Meanwhile, at home, Harsha and his father discuss the events, with his father furious and unwilling to continue the matchmaking process. Despite Harsha's objections, his father decides he will marry the first bride they met. His father dismisses his attempts to explain and apologizes for not listening earlier when he said he liked the first bride. He instructs Harsha's brother to inform the bride's family of the wedding. Later that night, Harsha visits Sabab to express his intentions towards Vibha, awaiting a response from him the next morning. Harsha leaves Sabab's house in excitement. The following day, Harsha and his friends await Sabab's call when his mother informs him about his engagement, leaving him unsure about what to do next. Soon, Harsha's family arrives at the engagement venue, only to discover that the bride's family is yet to show up. They later learn that they've decided to cancel the engagement. Questioning the priest about their decision, they head to Sabab's house. They learn that Sabab had spoken ill of Harsha to the bride's family, causing them to withdraw from the marriage arrangement. Harsha's family confronts Sabab, who admits to his actions. Vibha comes out, and her father reveals Harsha's proposal from the previous night. Harsha's father doubts him initially, but when Sabab shows them missed calls from Harsha, he's disappointed. Sabab takes them to the police station, where Harsha meets them. Harsha gets furious and attempts to fight Sabab, but the police intervene. Unfortunately, the misunderstanding escalates to a court case, during which Harsha and 2 of the potential brides testify. After a short court hearing, the judge adjourns the case, and they take a break. Harsha's father apologizes to Sabab, asking him to withdraw the case. Sabab agrees, on the condition that Harsha leaves India within 24 hours. Back home, Harsha faces criticism from his parents and uncle for his questions during the matchmaking. Sudhir reveals that the questions Harsha asked are actually Vibha's, which surprises everyone. However, Harsha's father is adamant, instructing him to leave. Harsha complies, but decides to stop at Vibha's concert venue on the way to the airport, despite his friend's objections. At the concert, Harsha approaches Vibha, confessing his feelings and explaining his actions. Harsha reveals that he ignored all his matches and chose her, but everyone around him is calling him confused, so he needs her opinion, as it is the only thing that matters. Vibha, in response, says she rejected him before he came to India. She explains that when Harsha took a break from work for 20 days to find a wife in India, she realized he doesn't know much about marriage. Harsha defends himself, citing his preparations for marriage in the USA. They discuss their expectations for marriage, with Harsha seeking a partner willing to adjust, while Vibha desires romance. In the end, Harsha walks away and heads back to New York. Harsha arrives in New York and decides to sell his house. At work, he struggles to focus. When he returns home, he finds his friend Shankar waiting for him at his house. Shankar warmly welcomes him and insists he should not sell the house. They retire for the night, with Shankar assuming the role of a wife to Harsha. Irritated by Shankar's behavior, Harsha leaves the bed. The next morning, while watering the flowers, Harsha is momentarily fooled into thinking Shankar is Vibha, which annoys him. He goes in to brush his teeth and discovers Shankar has used the second toothbrush in his bathroom, which belongs to his future wife, further frustrating him, and he pushes Shankar out of the bathroom. Shankar calls their friends over for a discussion about Harsha's situation, who come over to Harsha's house. They engage in a discussion, trying to cheer Harsha up. Afterwards, they disperse to their various houses. The following day, Harsha's brother-in-law visits to check on him. During their conversation, Harsha invites him to a friend's wedding anniversary, and he expresses his tiredness from attending random weddings and anniversaries. Despite his reluctance, Harsha insists they attend the wedding anniversary party. At the party, Harsha notices his friend's wife's unhappiness and approaches her to inquire. She confides in him about her dissatisfaction with her marriage, particularly feeling unloved by her husband, except on special occasions like birthdays and wedding anniversaries. This conversation triggers Harsha's memory of Vibha's statement about not wanting to adjust for anyone. The next day, Harsha questions his brother-in-law about married life, leaving him baffled. During their discussion, Harsha discovers that his sister and brother-in-law's marriage is also strained. His brother-in-law reveals their intention to end the marriage after Harsha's wedding, due to his wife's materialistic desires and dissatisfaction with his work efforts. Harsha also learns about his parents' marital difficulties during this conversation. 2 months later, Harsha decides to embark on a journey of self-improvement, striving to become a better version of himself. This period of his life is marked by significant challenges, but he finds solid support from his friends, who stand by him. Months pass, and Harsha continues his journey of personal growth, diligently working towards his goals. One day at work, he finds his boss scolding his colleagues for failing to impress a prospective company team for a potential tie-up. Moved by this, Harsha decides to take action and heads to the cafeteria to meet with the other company team. He approaches the company's CEO, Megha, and convinces her to play a football game with him, during which he makes her see reasons why they shouldn't withdraw from their company. Soon, Harsha's boss announces that their company's tie-up with the future company is finalized. They all rejoice and congratulate Harsha for his good work. They suggest throwing a party, and just then, Harsha's phone rings. During the call, Harsha learns that Megha's family is at their place to discuss their marriage alliance, and so he should be home in a few days' time. Harsha is shocked to hear this, and can't utter a word, as he can't come up with any excuse. The following day, Harsha decides to travel to India 10 days earlier than planned, so as to convince Vibha to marry him. Soon, he arrives in India and goes to Vibha's house. On getting to Vibha's house, he discovers that she no longer resides with her parents. After talking with Vibha's mother, Harsha learns that Vibha took responsibility for everything he said, leading her father to withdraw the case against him. This decision upset her father, prompting him to arrange her marriage. However, Vibha wasn't interested in any of the suitors, so she left home to escape the pressure. Before leaving Vibha's house, her mother asks Harsha not to hurt Vibha further, as she is already going through a tough time. Harsha promises not to add to Vibha's sadness, and to also bring her back home. Harsha and his friends embark on a mission to find Vibha. They locate her in a restaurant, where they see her slapping a young man who has come for matchmaking. Vibha steps away for a moment, and Harsha seizes an opportunity to quickly pen down a note in her book. When Vibha returns home and discovers the note, she decides to teach the mystery writer a lesson. Meanwhile, Harsha and his friends think on how to win Vibha's love, with Harsha opting to do so without revealing his identity. The following morning, Harsha and Sudhir visit Vibha's house. Harsha disguises himself as a bike rider whom Vibha has booked, and she unknowingly hops on his bike. Sudhir, on the other hand, rides with the actual bike rider, pretending to be Vibha. As they reach Vibha's destination, she asks Harsha to wait for her for 15 minutes, and he agrees. Soon, she comes out and joins Harsha on the bike. They continue their ride, during which they engage in discussions about their personal lives. Later that night, Vibha arrives home to find her father waiting outside. She questions his unexpected visit, and he demands they go home, as it's very difficult finding her a groom while she's away. Despite her resistance, her father won't give up, but Vibha remains firm in her decision and walks inside, leaving her father and Harsha outside. He asks Harsha to take him to his house. Just as he alights from the bike, Vibha sees another note from an unknown person and calls her father, asking him to take a selfie with Harsha and send it to her. Unfortunately, he is unable to capture Harsha's face. The next morning, Harsha calls Vibha, and tells her that she could have simply told him she wanted to see him instead of asking for a selfie. Vibha retorts, challenging him to come meet her if he's genuinely interested. Harsha makes up an excuse about not being prepared and abruptly ends the call to go get dressed. Meanwhile, Vibha returns inside her house and receives a text inviting her for a cinema date. When her Lola rider arrives, she asks him to remove his helmet, only to find out he isn't someone she knows. She hops on, and they head to the cinema. On arriving at the cinema, Vibha sits beside a man whom she mistakenly believes to be her date. Engaging in conversation with him, she soon realizes her error when she receives a text from Harsha, causing her to quickly leave her seat. Outside the cinema, the man from inside approaches Vibha and touches her in a bad manner, causing her to react in annoyance. Suddenly, Harsha shows up and starts beating him, claiming to be her husband and asserting ownership of her body. The man starts apologizing for his behavior and acknowledging Harsha as Vibha's husband. As Vibha tries to understand the situation, the man apologizes and leaves, clearly in pain from the experience with Harsha. Later, Vibha returns home, unaware that Harsha was the Lola rider. Just then, she receives a text from Harsha. She rushes out to confront the rider, only to find out that he's left. Meanwhile, Harsha, observing from a distance, calls her, leading to a heated exchange where Vibha expresses her displeasure to him about calling himself her husband earlier at the cinema and demanding that he leave her alone. As she heads inside, she receives a voice note from her mother about a temple prayer. At the temple, Harsha secretly monitors Vibha. He calls her, revealing he planned her mother's invitation to the temple, and directs her attention to her mother, wearing a rose in her hair. After an unsuccessful prayer attempt due to a misunderstanding with the priest, Vibha leaves the temple. Just then, Harsha sees Megha and tries to hide from her. However, his entire family appears to be in the temple for prayers. Harsha uses a man, not knowing that it's Subbub, as a shield to hide from his family. He manages to escape without Subbub seeing him, but as Subbub is about to leave the temple, he bumps into Harsha's family and questions Harsha's whereabouts. As they converse, he learns that Harsha is in New York and will be back in India soon, as he's about to get married. Subbub expresses doubts about Harsha's forthcoming marriage, warning of consequences if Harsha is found going after his daughter. Tension rises as Harsha's uncle almost engages in a fight with Subbub, but Harsha's father intervenes, calming the situation and presenting Subbub with Harsha's wedding invitation before they part ways. In the next scene, Harsha calls Vibha as she leaves the temple, saying that what she wants is hope, and he's placed that for her. Surprisingly, she sees an old couple holding a balloon with the word hope inscribed on it, leaving her speechless. Without a word, she watches the balloon as Harsha ends the call. The following morning, Harsha notices the same balloon outside his home, followed by a message on the wall inviting him out. He rushes to the agreed venue and sees Vibha holding the hope balloon. But Vibha says she doesn't want to see him, explaining that she can't give back the hope he's offered. As she releases the balloon into the sky, she opens up about her father's infidelity when she was 16, which shattered her belief in marriage. She reveals her plan to be fully committed to her life partner and drifts to her father's attempts to arrange her marriage. She complains about her father choosing a particular guy for her, whom she believed was the man for her, until she saw him with another woman. After sharing her story, Harsha lightens the mood with a joke and encourages her to embrace the newness in her, as her comedy is always about married couples, which is as a result of pain. Later that night, Vibha meets a man who tries to assault her, but she manages to escape. On returning home, she finds another balloon hanging outside. Seeking comfort, she calls Harsha, who helps calm her fears and stays on the line until she falls asleep. The next morning, Vibha wakes up to see the guy from the previous night, badly injured and sitting across from her. He explains his ordeal with Harsha and apologizes to Vibha. Meanwhile, Vibha seems to be getting along with Harsha. Soon, she goes back to her parents' house with her belongings. She has a lot of fun moments with Harsha, despite not being able to see his face. As they enjoy moments together, Harsha's joy is interrupted when he unexpectedly bumps into his family. Unknown to him, Subbub spotted him earlier and informed his family of his presence in India. When questioned by his father about his reason for being in India, Harsha says he came for Vibha, causing a heated argument about his choices in marriage. In the next scene, Subbub returns home and gives Vibha Harsha's wedding invitation. As she realizes that Harsha is the unknown man who has brought her happiness, tears fill her eyes. Meanwhile, Harsha attempts to reach out to Vibha several times, but his efforts are in vain, leaving him devastated. In a surprising twist, Harsha discovers that the couple he's been confiding in are related to Megha and are attending their wedding. They drive him back to the wedding venue after he narrates his story. During the wedding, Harsha and his family learn that Vibha will be performing at the wedding. While Harsha's father expresses concern about potential chaos, Vibha takes the stage and shares her recent experience with Harsha with the gathered guests. After her performance, Harsha tries to approach her, but his father stops him, instructing him to apologize to Megha before leaving. Fortunately, as Harsha approaches Megha to apologize, she explains that Vibha has already explained the situation to her, and she does not only understand, but also reveals that she invited Vibha to the wedding. Feeling passionate, Harsha addresses the attendees, emphasizing the importance of romance alongside love in every marriage. After his passionate speech, his mother encourages him to go comfort Vibha, who seems to be heartbroken. Following his mother's advice, Harsha approaches Vibha, and they reconcile their feelings. The two eventually get married and depart to New York, ready to start their new life together.